we had some history happen in the Tone Junkie verse, the Tone Junkie universe. For the first time ever, I'll tell people a little about the business here. Tone Junkie's number one selling product and the product that brings in the most revenue is the Kemper Everything Pack. And it's been that way as long as I can remember.
Since you
created the Everything Pack.
Started selling.
Yeah, since I started selling an Everything Pack.
Yeah.
Right.
I've never had any. Obviously, it sells a lot. People upgrade. There's flash sales with Everything Pack sales and stuff, and people get the bundle, and then their bundle's outdated, and they buy it again, or they buy an upgrade or whatever. And so every time someone upgrades, I give them a code, and so it looks like another Everything Pack purchase. So it moves a lot of units, and that's where the majority of the Tone Junkie revenue comes from. Not the majority, but the most of any single pack will come from that. For the first time ever, a pack in a month has outsold the Kemper Everything Pack in the Tone Junkie universe.
And it was the
ToneX Everything Pack.
Wow.
Now, for this last month, they were priced the same. So I kind of wanted to see if this would happen, and so I priced them both the same for the past month. And there's been an equal amount of sales gone to each audience and stuff, and it would appear that. So here's the question: Is ToneX the new king? I mean, I'm looking at this going, I've never seen Helix do this for me. Now, I know I wasn't big in the Helix world, like, you know what I mean? We've been doing Helix stuff for a while, but there was a lot of years where we didn't.
Yeah.
I know that when people think of Helix, they might think of Strabala or Sedites or the worst tutorial dudes, But obviously, I see a ton more creators, coming in and trying to do ToneX stuff right now. Seems like the bandwagon everyone's jumping on. Is this a sign of the times? Is ToneX number one?
I can't see how it wouldn't be.
Yeah.
It's the cheapest to get into.
Right, $179
by a very wide margin.
Yes, yeah.
Even if you buy the biggest pedal available,
and even there's a free option for the software.
Right. If you buy the biggest pedal, if you spend the most money possible on ToneX and then buy the Tone Junkie Everything Pack, that's still cheaper than buying
a Kemper.
That's still cheaper than buying
a Kemper.
I
think it's I think it's $50 less than the Kemper, or $100 less than the Kemper, or something like that.
Right.
Yeah, the Kemper.
And
small one.
if you get the
but if you buy a Tone Junkie loaded Kemper from British Audio, you get an Everything Pack with your purchase, no additional charge.
Was this episode sponsored? We lost all of our sponsorships.
We did.
Yeah.
They're still just us.
They're still just us.
Just to be clear.
Just to be clear, we're just sponsoring our own stuff. That's how this works. Yeah.
So
that's really interesting, though.
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing, and it tells me too we need to be doing a lot more ToneX stuff, and at least at equal measure, with the Kemper stuff.
Yeah.
So that's what I've been trying to do lately. Is every Kemper release had a ToneX release to go with it. And,
I've been trying, in all the Metal Junkie profiles I've made, I've been really diligent to do all three platforms at the same time.
Yeah. Kemper,
So I dial in a
ToneX.
tone. Do it on the Kemper, switch over the Quad Cortex. I've spent a lot of time and money and effort into making that switch as easy as possible.
Yeah, right.
I have like a patch bay and it's really simple to like move things over. But yeah, it's like ToneX and then Quad Cortex and then Kemper.
Yeah.
And then make sure that they all relatively sound the same.
Yeah.
And they usually do. So.
Yeah, for me, ToneX was the product that it bridged the gap between like when the Iridium and the ACS1 came out. It was like, we're just giving you amps and they sound good, but they didn't sound as good to me as like the Kemper, like the other contemporaries at that time. But then Quad Cortex comes out and it's all in one. Helix, of course, has been there all in one. And I'm looking around going, okay, well, where was the evolution of just the amps like that the Iridium did and the Walrus did? And then the ToneX is saying, yeah, we're not all in one. We don't have all that other stuff, but you can add this to your board, and it's going to sound way better than that Iridium did, or at least you're going to have more amp options. And to me, that was the sweet spot of like, I personally know so many guitar players that want to keep their effects. They're not interested in like a Kemper stage
Sure.
or a Helix. Like they want their stuff, but they can't play loud. So how do I go direct and keep all my stuff? It was only Iridium, maybe the UA ones, fit that, whatever.
Sure. Yeah.
But now you have the beauty of the Kemper is like the tens of thousands of things that you can choose from. And now you have that in a size of like a Ditto looper, you know what I mean? And so I think that, like you said, how does that not go to the first spot, especially with all these new users going? Like a couple of my friends got the ToneX and they're like, I've never owned a digital amp in my life.
Right.
What do I go buy? That's why I think the sales are spiking, because you have brand new people to the market saying, what do I put in this?
Right.
How do I make this sound
good? Yeah, there's finally a product for people who've been sitting on that fence of like, I don't want to fully switch over to everything in these platforms because I like my timeline and my Big Sky.
Yeah.
But I also don't like the ACS1 or using a torpedo or whatever.
Totally.
And all of a sudden, it makes sense to do that.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild.
It's
pretty wild. We've been talking about this for months now. Like we've been hovering around the subject of like, as soon as the guitar tone doesn't need to also make the guitar loud. Like the options are endless now, right?
Sure.
It's the like making it loud is the hard part. It has the most amount of energy required, therefore the most amount of electricity and space and heat dissipation and all of this. When you don't need to make it loud, it's like
just make it sound good.
You just make it sound good. It's like, of course it can fit in a Ditto looper. You know what I mean? Like. And that's the thing, because even like preamp pedals and all of that, right? It's like, but what's making it loud? And so you have to like figure out how those two things play into each other. Once you don't need anything to make it loud, it's like now it's just the overdrive, like the preamp, like the amp section it's just another character EQ. And compression, that's all it is.
Yeah.
There's really nothing that special about, the way it sounds.
We just want it to feel familiar and respond to what we're kind of looking for. It's funny because we're still mimicking what those bigger machines did.
For sure.
And they function that way for the purpose of maybe making things louder,
Well, making it loud was the priority.
That was the priority, and
the other stuff came. That's just just a byproduct of what it took to make it loud.
Yeah, like the overdrive in a guitar amp is like largely not intentional. I mean, it becomes intentional,
right?
But like it's like, how do I make this sound loud? And then there's a level at which you're like overloading a gain stage.
Yeah, I'm sure
and then it's like, I like that.
I'm sure at some point Leo Fender, when he was designing this thing, designed something that was probably reminiscent of like a high gain amp, right? On accident. And he's like, oh, I don't like that.
He might have apologized for it.
Yeah.
Hey, sorry, this isn't getting louder. It's just getting dirtier.
It's just doing this thing that's obviously, like, it sounds like it's going to blow up.
Well, you take a Fender 600, those little amps? I don't know if you remember those. These tiny little amps that they made. We'll put it on the screen here, but it's super old. They're like before tweeds. They're called, and they had 6-inch speakers called Fender 600s. And, if you put that on 10, it sounds like just like a cheap fuzz pedal.
Right.
It's very simple.
Right.
I think there's 112AX7 in there. And it's not all the things you love about an amp. It just is like becomes super dirty. But it's a functional little amp as long as you don't turn it up all the way.
Right.
But they were trying to make things loud and so you could hear it over the drums, next to the drums. Then it was like, hey, can we put that big
and the horn section
and the horn? Yeah, can we put that big bass? Can we get that big bass sound to come through one of these things too? Right. And can we, do this or that? So it's interesting. I mean, obviously the ToneX is answering a lot of people's problems in terms of, now this easily integrates and it has all the sounds and I can sort of follow my favorite creators. Because, it's funny. I'd like to, not to call myself a bit of a tone Nostradamus here, but I remember saying...
Tone-Stradamus?
Yeah, Tone-Stradamus. I put that on my epitaph.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Tone-Stradamus here. But look, I remember saying, I think the biggest misstep with UA is that there's nothing to download. And I think in the end of the day, that's true. Like, had they given us even just more to do, because I pointed out at the time, the problem with the Iridium and the problem with the UA stuff is this. There's not a lot to talk on the internet about. And that is what everyone's doing. You know, even stuff that you don't even need to talk about it on the internet. People are, you know what I mean? Like you can talk about everything on the internet. And so if someone gives you something, and they do, but it has to be something you can
setting.
Yeah. What's your tube screen? Yeah. I mean, all that stuff is there, but how do you combine this? What do you use for this? What do you blah, blah, blah. But when it's just like, how do you set up your one pedal to get your amp sound? You know, and then there's some talk about IRs, but I don't think talk about IRs helps any one brand. It actually only reminds people that these IRs you buy work on everything, and they're just one of many. Right. So I don't think that helps anyone be a differentiator. I think the real weakness of the UA stuff, all of it, by the way, and I would tell them this, is that there is not a deeper editor that you can save settings and share them with other people and do stuff. And people might look at me and go, well, that's self-serving. You just wish you could make stuff. And sure, of course I do. But I also understand that, like, social media is so powerful that if you're not at least making it easy for people who use your product and are enthusiastic about your product to express that on social, you don't have a chance. Why make your job so hard? I sold boring men's apparel for years, workwear. No one wanted to talk about it. Everyone hates their job, hates their boss. They don't want to talk about the uniform they wear at work. No one's on Facebook going like, I wear those pants. They're good. Their belt loops are real nice. And, you know, there's some people who do something clever, like Duluth Trading Company. All their ads have like a guy with like you can see his butt crack. Right. It's like that's the funny part of it.
But that's the exception.
That's the exception, right? Yeah. And so you don't want to fight that. And so to me, it's like if you obviously have all these guitar players running around all these places online talking about your product. Give them something to do. Give them something. That was also my problem with Fender ToneMaster Pro. The sharing was just so terrible that it was like, I can't even say, hey, here's free stuff I've made. And I'll make free stuff for this so that maybe you'll buy my IRs. I'm not even incentivized enough because you can't even find me on there. Right. Like there's no Tone Junkie page. There's no, and so it just, I think ToneX is really getting the benefit of, here is a way that anybody can make a guitar sound, very low barrier to entry. And for $179, you can play it on your end with your rig, with your stuff. The barrier to entry is so low. It's priced so competitive with every other pedal on your board. Yeah. What they really got right, I think, above everything else, you'd be hard pressed to find people who have multiple pedals on let me put it like this. You'd be hard pressed to find people who own a pedal board who have no pedals over 179. Like if you simply own a pedal board, no matter if it's 3 pedals on it, 10 pedals, you probably have pedals worth more than 179.
Unless you built a Joyo board.
Unless you put yes, our Joyo board. Yeah. But see how that sounded? Terrible.
Good luck with that.
And so
that was my point.
We try.
So the price is such.
It's hard to do.
The price is such that it's like, we're not even asking you to buy a premium board, a premium pedal for your board. It's like, this is one of the cheaper things you'll end up buying.
Well, the thing
is crazy.
The other thing too, and I think this is why Capture Tech, and to some degree, I think maybe tone matching is kind of in a similar thing.
Yeah.
But I think Capture Tech, the thing is, it's like, it's $179 to get this thing, and there is literally no limit to what it can sound like. It can sound like anything in the entire world, ever.
Whatever you want.
And so then it becomes like a hunt to find the one thing, the one sound that you've heard in your head forever. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I think that's why, owning these things is fun, because you're searching for those things. I think that's why making profiles for them is fun, because there's really no limit to what you can make. Even if you already have an amp, it's like, oh, well, now there's this new feature and we can redo the amp, and you know what I mean? And it's not even about selling it. It's about the discovery of the tone. It's the discovery, you know what I mean? And so I think that's the other part of it that is awesome, is that they figured out a way to do it cheaper than everyone else. Granted, though, it does less, right?
Sure.
Like, it's $179, but it doesn't, you know, the Profire player does way more than
Oh yeah,
it, you know what I mean?
yeah. It could be a whole rig if you.
It
want.
is it can be a whole rig if you want it to be. But anyway,
Yeah,
that's cool.
I think
Turning
it's cool.
of the tide.